Hello, friends. Sorry, we're a little running late today. Hey, good morning, Linda. Sharon, good morning to you. Hope you are grand. Are you, everyone? Good morning. John, listening while frantically packing for our last show. Let's cheers. Here's to the last show of the season and the weekend. Hope it's fruitful. Good morning, Donna. Hope you're having a good day. Hi, Jane. Hope you're Jonathan as well. Hope you're doing well. Great to see you here. Welcome. A little Christmassy mug. Very nice. Cecile, good morning to you. How are you? Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late this morning. Just been fighting the technical demons, so getting in here, but we are here now, so glad you're with us. We'll give it a few seconds more, and more folks coming along. It's one of my mentors in church, one of my very first people I came to learn under, a guy by the name of Mark Mendes. He's a pastor, still a pastor up in Vermont, a great guy. And I was a young student minister, and we were sitting there listening to the church around us because we were. It was a Sunday morning. We were preparing for things, and there were kids running down the stairs. There were the folks from Bible study in the next room. There was a choir warming up, and we, even though we were sitting in his office, it was just the whole building was just singing. And he looked over at me and he just smiled and he said, "I love the sound of a well-used church." And I've never forgotten that. It's always been a great gift to me. And we kind of have that going this morning. There's a few things being worked on here, but there's also we've got the United Way of Greater Fall River and their volunteers, and a number of our volunteers out there sorting coats in the gym, and we've got things going on up front. So we have a well-used church this morning, and I love that sound. So that is a part of my morning here. Yeah, it's been a real joy to work with the United Way in their coat drive and our ability to provide some space for that. So that's been a great gift. So, all right, good morning, everybody. It is the second day of December at 11:11, and I want to welcome you here. And for this journey, I want to welcome each one of you that are a part of this dark and stormy day. It's breezy and blustery here as well, and that you may be well and good, and whether you're finding us for the first time or you're a part of this community over time, welcome. That God's grace might be upon you as you're a part of this thing now. Just hearing my voice links you into a group of us who are praying for each other, and to that end, I want to encourage us to continue to pray for Jonathan, Jean's husband, who's been struggling with a number of medical issues right now. So we'll pray for him, and we'll pray for Barbara and for Bev, for those in our kin in our midst. So know that you are thought of and that you are prayed for through this time. 2 inches of snow. Oh, it has come. It has come. All right. So welcome, everybody. We have an ongoing Bible study, speaking of a well-used church, and we're doing the book of James, and it's so sweet that I wanted to lift up one of the key lines from this study that keeps coming back, and I want to talk about it a little bit today. And so it's the very end of the first chapter of James. And James is kind of trying to inspire the church to into action. And there's a lot of reason for them not to act. They're under incredible pressure. They're being persecuted at every front. So, and he's kind of calling them to a deeper faith, to a deeper practice of their faith. And this is what, in many ways, the entire book of James is about. It's about what do we do? How do we do when things get hard? And so in the 27th verse of this, he says, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this. Now, that's a big, there's a bold truth claim for you right there. And he says, is this, to care for the orphans and the widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Oh, it's such a beautiful, it cuts to the very bone. And we've talked about how in many ways it actually was the thing that saved the church and saved the world, and this very praxis of what it is to be a follower of Jesus that James was about. But I want to talk about this. I think we get this idea of caring for those who are vulnerable in our midst, and we could talk more about that. But the second part is to keep oneself unstained by the world. I think we have sometimes some wrong ideas about that. So we have some ideas that we need to be pure in thought, word, and deed, and that there's some sort of purity standard which, if we fall down on, we somehow have failed, and God doesn't love us anymore, and we'll just retreat to the outer darkness and fill our little buckets full of shame. But this isn't what he's saying. He's saying that the act and the work is to keep ourselves unstained by the world. Now, okay, well, what is it in the world that's going to stain us? And I think it is this deep and abiding sense that Christ keeps bringing back, that he brings it up numerous times in the Gospel of John. He brings it up numerous times throughout the Beatitudes. This thing about James is often referencing the Beatitudes, even though he's doing it in kind of a subtle way. And the Beatitudes is they're all about the way in which we see the world and the way in which we let the world affect us, or that we choose to affect the world. Just hear that again. The way we choose to affect the world, or the way we permit the world to affect us. So, we see this in playing itself out in all number of ways. And we see it playing ourselves out, right here and right now. That we should, and I want to invite us into this unstained way of living. This way of really starting to be, and we've talked about this before, but a really understanding of what it means if we are going to be those who are gonna bring God's light and God's wisdom into this world. If we're going to be bearers of goodness, if we're going to be the hands and feet of Christ in the world, if any of that aspires to us at all, if any of it inspires us to be a vessel of light over darkness, however you want to frame it, that this notion of tending to what it is we allow to color us. I mean, this is hear that language, unstained. What will we permit ourselves to be colored by? You want to be colored by jealousy? You want to be colored by hate? You want to be colored by envy? You want to be colored by negativity? You want to be colored by failure? And failure is an act; it's not really a thing, but we can choose to live into it. That there's this encounter that that Steve Jobs had, the creator of Apple. There's so many things that we live in our lives with that we think that because of this notion of what, and Steve Jobs was incredible at this, of not permitting the world to stain his worldview and what the vision that he was holding on to of what he wanted to create. I have right with me here a simple computer mouse. Everybody's got them. Well, there was a time that these didn't exist. really in kind of in the 1980s, and I was there. I know that and that these didn't exist. And the model that this is designed on was the basic model that Steve Jobs was trying to build at Apple, and he had this crystal clear vision of what he wanted in a mouse. He said it should move seamlessly. He should move this way, and this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to track at the right speed, and he had all these requirements. He knew what he had a vision of this. He knew what he wanted to bring into the world. He knew what goodness he was going to bring into the world, what in creation he wanted to bring forward, what he was being called to bring forward, I think. And so he gathered up all the engineers, and he gathers up all the people, and he gives them the specs, gives them the briefings. This is what I want. And they walk out, and one of the lead engineers. So this is a lead engineer at Apple. This isn't a guy who just came there, one day. Like, it's one of the lead engineers says, it can't be made commercially viable. There's no way you can make this that for commercial production. It can't be done. The project manager, who was the head of that entire project, arrived the next morning to discover that lead engineer had been fired. When Jobs heard those words of negativity, he fired that lead engineer who'd been with Apple who knows how long, who'd been but the thing about Jobs is he was ruthless in what he would permit into his world. Now, this isn't to be delusional, and this isn't to be so cut off from the world that we're just kind of sitting on a flagpole somewhere. But this is to say that what we permit to stain us, that there's an actual action in that to keep oneself unstained by the world is an action that we are called to engage in. In fact, James would say it's one of the core actions of what it is to truly live into the Christian life. And again, this isn't a purity standard, because it wasn't about, I used Jobs' example, particularly that, because he wasn't about him not being tainted by that, but it's about what's going to be helpful. Is that guy's belief and idea that this mouse that we bought for $10 or whatever it cost couldn't be created commercially viable. His idea around that his idea of what he thought was possible in the world so colored that thing. As a lead engineer, there was no way the vision that Jobs had was going to come into it, and he recognized this, and he fired him outright. Now, I'm not inviting you to go fire a bunch of people in your life, but I am asking you to consider what are the things that you let in to color you. And if they're trying to color you in ways that are trying to stain you, in ways that are not glorifying to your spirit, that are not glorifying to God's love for you, that are not bringing about generativity and creativity, that are not kind of leading back to our ability to care for the widows and the orphans, that leading back to that are not complementing that first part, then we need to look hard at it. And we need to be, and I think we are in a ruthless time where it's worthwhile cutting off the things that are not feeding you. Because one of the things I think about the time that we're in is it's so much harder to manage these things, that there are so many different colors. Like it's like that festival, like the Hindu festival of Diwali going on all the time. If you've already know that festival, it's this festival where they have these highly colored powders, and that people run through the streets and they throw these colored powders at them. So you end up with this big, like maybe there's like a thing called a color run. Maybe you've seen that, like you wear a white shirt, people throw powders at you. Well, it's kind of like the Diwali festival. It's the same thing. We're in this Diwali world. We're in this world where they're constantly getting colors thrown at us, and that it's difficult for us, and it's disorienting to try and to try and sort out, well, this one's good, that one's bad, and that, what does it require for us to stay unstained from the world? Um, it's you think about ages past. Um, uh, Reverend Fahey, the famous Reverend Fahey, once said, "It is nearly impossible to be a Christian in a city." And well, most of us friends live in cities now. Like 80% of us live in cities. And even if you live in, you think you live rurally, even if you're in, everybody I know in Maine, y'all live in suburbs. Like, let's be honest, somebody comes and gets your garbage mostly. Even if you go down to even if you go down to the mall, like, it's still, you're living in a suburb. It's just a little spread out. Like, let's be honest. Like, that we're all citified at this point. And here's the good Reverend Fahey who says it's really hard to be a Christian in the city. That this, like, we're in this age that is trying to stain us, and I think that's so key that we have this, that we simply, if nothing else, be aware if that's the case. Be aware that people are throwing colors at us all the time, and that we don't have to put them on. We don't have to. We don't have to permit ourselves to be stained by them. We don't have to permit ourselves to be stained by whatever talking head is on the screen in front of us. Wait, that's me. Well, anyway, but we don't have to be sustained and affected in all these ways. We don't have to permit it. We don't have to. Now, it's going to take place to some degree or another, but we don't have. But being conscious of it can give us all the power in the world. The great Athenian general Pericles, and he was leading a armada of 150 ships, and as they were sailing across the wine dark sea, as they used to say in those days, there was an eclipse, and nobody necessarily had predicted this eclipse or knew that it was happening, and so everything got, as it will happen during an eclipse, the whole world got dark, and the sailors on his ships and the ships surrounding him started freaking out. Like, they started freaking out. Here it was midday, and all of a sudden the sun blots out, and they are losing their minds. And in fact, to the point where ships start running into each other, and Pericles is unfazed by this, and he goes over to the helmsman, and he takes his cloak and he throws it over his head, and he said, "Hey, is anything different than it was just a second ago?" Or he says, he holds it up, and then he holds it up and he says, "Are you scared of this?" He says, "No, General, it's your cloak. Like, you just threw it over my head, and you're kind of weird." But he says, "No, I'm not scared of this." Then what does it matter that you cannot see whether the cloak is over your head or whether the sun is not in the sky? What does it matter? I love that story, because I think it's about this way that we kind of can see, when we can see the world, and for a bit, for what it is, of understanding the fact that we're maybe contending with darkness, or we're contending with all of these things that want to influence us, and we want to go to, like, well, why is it trying to influence us? What are they doing? Who's trying to get us? Where's it going? What's going on? And, like, oh my God, like, why is the world trying to stain us? Well, the world was trying to stain James 2,000 years ago. Like, this is not new. But getting fired up about why there's no sunlight, and why your ships, why you can't see, and losing your mind, and losing your cool, and losing your calm because of that, well, it just doesn't help anything, does it? In fact, it makes everything so much worse. To understand that we might be inundated by colors right now that are trying to stain us, well, just that's enough. That's enough. We don't have to understand why the sun is blotting out. We don't have to understand the astrophysics of an eclipse. We don't have to understand. It can be, that it's the same experience as if the cloak was thrown over our head, and that doesn't, and that is not particularly scary. Well, the same, it casts us into the same world, where we don't have to be scared because there's all these influences coming at us. We don't have to be worry about where they're all coming from and trying to figure out and the evil machinations of these people or those people or what's going on behind it. Don't worry about it. Stop worrying about it. It's just freaking you out. What James is inviting us to is help the people who are right around you that are in need, the widows and the orphans, which are those that are within the 3 meter distance from where you're standing. Help the people that need help within the 3 meters around you, and keep yourself unstained from the world. He doesn't say then go figure out why the world is staining you. He doesn't say open yourselves up to all the investigations of the different colors that are trying to stain you, because the colors are the same. They're the same 7 sins that have been trying to get us for the longest time. They're the same principalities that have been around for since the beginning of the fall. They're the same. There's nothing different there. There's nothing new in any of that. What our invitation is, I think, is this ability to roll back to a life of simplicity, even though there's nothing simple about life right now. To roll back to a world that is closer to what we can affect, and if we need to fire something, fire it. If there's a voice that is a part of your creative process that cannot and will not understand. Because here's the thing about Steve Jobs and lead engineer is that, of course, the project manager needed a new lead engineer. And so he went down to the bullpen and promoted his most promising lead engineer. And the first thing that he said when he walked into the room is he said, I can build this mouse. I can build this mouse. Friends, all things are possible in Christ who strengthens you. That you might feel tainted and stained by the world beyond measure, but you're not. You're driven white and driven clean every day. That our efforting is not what's going to make the difference. It's simply going to open us up to the grace and the leading and the love of Christ Jesus that is trying to lift us up out of our own mess. So my invitation to you is take a page from James. Take a page from his instruction. And don't worry about what the colors are that are being thrown at you. Don't worry about where they're coming. Don't worry about who's doing the throwing. But decide if those are colors that really are going to be a part of your creative process, that really are going to help you build the thing in the world that you're called to build, that are really going to help form the life that you want to live, that are going to be a part of the thing. And if there's something there that needs firing, well, maybe it needs firing. But more than anything, my invitation to you is trust that in all this, God's grace and God's love is at work in your life. And know that stained or unstained, broken or unbroken, depressed or joyful, that God's love for you, and that God's operation in that is doing everything it can, all that is possible, to come and dwell with you in life and life in abundance. All right, friends, that's my hope for you today. Sorry for being late. So I pray that you are well. We will be worshiping on Sunday at 10 o'clock. It is Communion Sunday. We have a joy on the second Sunday of Advent. On this second Sunday of Advent of peace, we are going to be hearing stories of the messenger John and what messages God might have for us in these days. Hope you'll worship with us, whether here on Facebook Live or you will join us live in person, in the flesh, incarnate, as we like to say in the church, and come and break bread with the one who made you. All right, peace and grace, friends. We will pick it up next week at another 11:11.